When I want to talk about how I picked SOTR, because I actually see this a lot in comments, in Discord chats, and reviews, just, blah 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 filler, blah blah blah, why'd you pick this novel? Great translator with crappy story, etc. etc. Because, okay, so this kind of has to go back to when I started in this field. As most of you guys know, I used to work in finance. It was pretty hardcore in finance. I went to business school, went to MBA, I have a lot of certifications, blah, blah, blah. And I worked in New York City, the finance hub of the world. But I got severely burned out by finance. And so one day I was just randomly searching around online, surfing the web on my lunch break, trying to figure out what else I could do with my life. When I stumbled upon Wuxiaworld in its old format, like its WordPress format. And then I was like, whoa, what is this? Because, most Asians, you grow up on, say, wuxia or Chinese fantasy dramas. Watch them with your parents or your cousins when you visit Asia over the summer. So I was very well and truly familiar with the genre. And so I was like, what is this? People actually translate this and share it, and there's actually people who read it. What the heck? So I was like, this sounds interesting, and I sent an email off to Ren. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Do you need anyone to help? I've dabbled with translation agencies before, so I think my language skills are pretty darn awesome. I'm also a bookworm, so yeah. Do you want any help? Basically, I had no idea what was going on. I sent a super naive, bouncing off the walls email to him. And he was actually very nice and kind to respond to that. I mean, honestly, it would be like if I received a random PM from someone these days going, oh my gosh, what you do is so cool. I want to be a translator too. How can I be a translator? I'd be like, mom, yeah. So he said, I should just start translating, pick a novel, and see, see how it goes for 50 chapters or so. Because 50 chapters is the bare minimum to get on Wuxiaworld / launch on Wuxiaworld. So I was like, okay, I'm going to search for novels. So here I go, searching for novels. And back then, I only looked on Qidian. Because Qidian, despite everything that's happened in the industry and in the circle, they have a very good library. In fact, back in those days, most people only picked their novels from Qidian because the library was that good. So I went library diving in Qidian, and I just stumbled upon SOTR somehow. I only read the first couple of chapters, and you guys know what happens in the first couple of chapters. Jiang Chen dies of a fart. So I saw that, I was like, whoa, hey now, this is pretty awesome, this is pretty funny. Let's go with this. And that was how I picked my first novel in the scene. By the way, I actually purposefully picked such a long novel. I distinctly remember thinking, anything around 1,000 is for wusses. I'm gonna pick something at least 2,000 chapters, because that's what real women do. Yeah, it was crazy. I was absolutely nuts. Very, very bad. Yeah, it only probably took me about a year for me to realize I made such a huge mistake. Because back in those days, I did 2 chapters a week, and that was actually a pretty darn decent speed. Because 1 chapter a week was the standard back in those days. So that's why it took me 4.5 years to finish SOTR. If I started doing it now, it would probably only take 3 at the very most. Something like that. So I distinctly remember thinking, probably that song from Mulan, let's make a man out of you. I'd be like, yeah, that's me, rah, 2K chapters, let's go. Madness. So that's how I ended up with SOTR, and it's been a hell of a ride. I detail a lot of things that I went through, both personally, professionally, and just, in the greater environment. But yeah, it has been a ride. It is definitely, with a lot of relief, honestly, that I am finally hosting this final chapter reading and the send-off for SOTR. It's been a long time. 4.5 years is a very long time to spend on anything. And it's just nice to be able to get onto something new. I'm such a different translator from where I was 4.5 years ago. Okay, 5 years ago, really. So my next novel, it's called Necropolis Immortal. Hopefully, it's not going to take another 5 years, but since it's already on 2,000 chapters, it's going. So the full title is Necropolis Immortal. And in fact, if any of you are long-term novel updates users, you will find an entry under Immortal Tomb. It's that novel, but the real name should be Necropolis Immortal. And honestly, guys, I personally think I made a really good choice this time. Because, guys, I'm so excited to share Necropolis Immortal with you. It may be 2,000 chapters already. It's only 2/3 of the total word count of SOTR thus far. So, when both are like 2,000 chapters, but one is only 2/3 the length of the other, that is a lot less filler. And then I just started reading the novel, and honestly, it really grips me. It starts off, very crazily funny in my opinion, but then it will turn serious towards later parts, and there have actually been times when I was reading and I've gone, whoa, what? No, like it has actually surprised me. By this point in time, translators, we've read so much in our search for new novels or evaluating novels, or read so much of our own novels that it's, in my opinion, hard to be surprised anymore. And so it's really nice to be surprised by plot twists and have my mind blown again. And no filler. Guys, the best part is I have a cameo in NECRO. The author wrote me in. This is actually my second novel that I have a cameo in. I also have a cameo in ROS, Return of the Swallow, currently at 450 chapters. So my characters in both ROS and NECRO have the same name, which is how you guys know it's me. And I actually am the second female lead in ROS. Pretty darn awesome. I don't appear in NECRO until very, very further on, and I actually haven't read my own storyline yet, so I'm not sure what's it about, but I do know that I come from a very large and important family. So I suck at choosing names, guys, and the authors were always like, give me a name. I'm like, oh, shoot me, but I really want a cameo. Okay, so the surname is Cho, as in autumn, and then I picked Faye as the second character just as a reference to Volare, because Volare is Latin for fly. And then I had to figure out something to end it with, because names are most often 3 characters. I didn't want a 2-character name. I wanted a 3-character name. So I just picked a random girl ending character. So it's Shan. Cho Fei Shan, that is my character. I was just bored of 2-character names. You see them everywhere in the novels. So you'll see Cho Fei Shan in both ROS and NECRO. So that was kind of a bit of blabbing on about thoughts about SOTR and thoughts about NECRO. By the way, NECRO is really worth checking out just because I can really feel, and actually with both ROS and NECRO, I can really feel the authors putting in a lot of work into planning, outlining, and developing their novels. Necropolis Immortal is written by Immortal Amidst Snow in July. And what I really respect him for is that I've actually seen him take days off, where he says, hey guys, sorry, I need a day off because I'm not very satisfied with my outline for the next couple of chapters. And he only updates a chapter or 2 a day, but his novel is very popular. And I'm like, guys, that's like respect right there. Because all of our web novel authors, they're usually updating at like 3, 4, 5 chapters a day. Because, makes sense. They get paid per word count, and if their novel's a hit, then they'll try to milk it. It's only natural, it's human nature. But here, this guy has a hit on his hands. He is still outlining stuff at chapter 2000. I recently saw him take a day off in March, saying, hey guys, I need some time to outline the next developments. And I was like, whoa, dang, respect right there. Okay. Now we're going to transition to the AMA portion of the live reading. First, I'd like to open the floor up to any questions about like SOTR or NECRO or ROS, whatever you want to ask about my translations. Was there any arc I wanted to stop? This actually goes back to something that Ren used to advise new translators in the scene. And he actually gave me the same advice too. And this is my advice to any translator or aspiring translators or anyone interested in the scene who's listening in, is that you should really try to read as much of the novel as possible before starting, just to make sure you like it, just to make sure, you don't get suddenly hit with a bout of racism or sexism or whatever that you don't like. And so I didn't do that. Again, I was like, I've got this 2,000 chapter novel. I don't want to read it all. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine, bro. I'm just gonna roll with it. Yeah, no. The scene that I wanted to stop at was actually really early on. The 100, I think, when Long Zhixue first was getting hunted down. And these people kept popping up over and over again to save her. This wasn't that far along the novel. This is literally like chapter 100. Everything was fine before then. But then here comes this epic fight, like this first real throwdown with a decent enough boss. And man, she just wouldn't die. Like 3 people in a row popped up, like formulaically wise. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, if I'd read this part first, I might have reconsidered. Because the whole battle was just really nonsensical. I had many arcs that I liked afterwards, but that was just really bad. And you could see it in the reader comments as well. People were just collectively losing their minds. That was an arc I wanted to stop. How long did it take you to learn to read this much Chinese this fast? That's a good question. I will definitely say, and my friends and family will attest to the fact that my Chinese has greatly improved since setting foot in the scene. I mean, it's inevitable. I handle at least 10,000 characters a day. And when you're reading that much every day, it's impossible for your Chinese not to improve. But I will say that I've always read very fast. I was a bookworm when I was in school. I actually probably still hold the highest record of books read in my high school library. The librarians actually pulled it up once. In my 4 years of high school, I believed I read, was it 1,205 books? Something like that. So that comes with the territory. So I've always kind of had good speed reading skills, I guess. I only remember because it was pretty darn impressive. What was the hardest part about being a translator for you? I don't know. I don't know if I have the hardest part, because I am so lucky to be in a position where my passion is my job, and it actually puts food on the table. So like the holy intersecting trinity of passion, money, and job, So it's kind of, there are definitely parts I don't really care for. Not everyone is as nice and awesome as you guys. I definitely get my fair share, or maybe more than fair share, because I'm one of the few girls in the scene, of mean comments, creepy comments, really creepy stuff, honestly, guys. Like, if you ever see this online, whether in any community that you're part of, take a stand, speak up. You don't want this type of stuff to be said to your baby sister or your cousin and your sister, just, there's some creepy stuff out there, guys. How are the author's sentence structures in SOTR? As in, is he pretty creative with his writing style in Chinese, or are they bland and you spice things up to sound better? If any of you guys also read ROS, you will probably notice a very big difference in the level of writing between ROS and SOTR. That might answer your question. I like to think of myself as a good writer, but I have to say I am heavily influenced by the level of writing in the RAWs. So if they are bland and uninspired and all formulaic, then there's only so much creativity I can literally pull out of my butt to try to spice things up before, I run out of ideas. And you will see a much greater variety in ROS. And for those of you who read NECRO, I think you will really like the writing in NECRO as well. Regarding SOTR, is there a particular plot line or thread that I wanted to continue further? Oh gosh, yeah. I feel like, this was one of the reasons why I picked up SOTR in the first place, because in the first 100 chapters, we actually got to see a lot about the side characters, his servants, his friends. A lot about their motives, their personalities, etc. So that really struck me as being awesome, because it's not just all, the MC stage, the MC show. And so there were a lot of plot lines that I wish could have been explored. And so for one, I really wish he'd elaborated on his friends in the Sky Laurel Kingdom. That's the first big kingdom we go to after we leave the Eastern Kingdom. Because to me, it felt like he really formed some deep friendships there. and then just kind of petered out. Yeah, they went back and they visited the place, but there was so much more that could have been explored there, I feel like. Yeah, I really like the Sky Laurel Prince, Yerong. The biggest plot lines that I probably wish had been explored would be the demons. Oh my lord, okay. We get like 1,000 chapters of this huge buildup of this huge ass villain, and then we kind of just see them fight and bicker amongst themselves, and then they all get sniped out, and that's that. And I'm like, what? Huh? Yo, what now? And then the bit about actually traveling to the Taiyuan Plain, and his rescuing his father, and the whole Mirror Bloom incident. Guys, I was with you. I was getting PMs from readers thinking, oh, the traitors, God King Righteous, or Crimson Waters, or someone. I felt like there was so much material there that could have been explored. The actual cataclysm itself, how Jiang Chen's dad got locked away. We got a bit of a glimpse of how bad the plane was after he got locked up, but I feel like that could have been explored more. Maybe we could have gotten a chapter or two from this perspective of a regular denizen of the plane. Just there's a lot more about the people and the side characters that I really wanted to see explored. Even Manqi, when he finally got released from that huge seal in the Jianghan province, we got like a chapter or two about them taking the oath and fighting, I think. And that was it. A lot of readers remember the guy. So I was like, yeah, I kept remembering him too, keeping him in the back of my mind. So a lot of the threads, I think, about the side characters. Do you find yourself getting stuck in trope phrases? For instance, if there's something the author overuses, do you make adjustments or try to remain true to the source? Now, this definitely gets into my translating philosophy. So back in the days, I was very hardcore literal translations. What the author writes is what I write. That makes for bad reading experience, as I've come to realize. Because now, humor doesn't translate very well across culture. Syntax doesn't. Who wants to read? Basically, I would be turning myself into glorified edited MTL. That just is not fun to read. So these days, I definitely make adjustments. A lot of adjustments, actually. My process these days now is to read the Chinese, understand what the author is trying to convey, whether the message or the tone, the mood, the atmosphere, and then I regurgitate it all in English, but I basically am rewriting it from scratch. But I am conveying the same message, tone, mood, or atmosphere, but I am essentially rewriting it. So I make a lot of localizations. Like, for instance, there's a saying in Chinese that goes, his heart grew cold, 心凉了. That conveys a certain emotion in Chinese. But when I say that in English, people are like, okay, is he about to get a heart attack or something? That just doesn't really translate. And so in English, I actually translate that to a sinking feeling in his stomach. Because that's the expression that we use in English. And that's the same emotion that we convey in English. So I actually make a lot of adjustments like that. And I actually wrote an article about that on my own site, etvo.com. What was my favorite arc of SOTR? There were also quite a few of those. Actually, I want to say my favorite moments are whenever Jiang Chen is verbally face-slapping them. Jiang Chen's got some pretty darn good insults, honestly. And his dad, too. Do you guys remember in the beginning of the novel where his dad was like, they were trying to pressure him to sell, I think, a field or something? And he was like, I'd rather raise pigs on this thing than sell it to you. And I was like, damn, badass dad. All right. There's actually some really good dialogue in SOTR, and that's one of the biggest things that I really enjoy about SOTR. But I also really liked when Huang Er was being a troll at that tournament for Ling Biyer's hand. She was straight up troll, yo. That was when I really, really liked her as best girl. And I saw some comments scrolling through just to know how people were saying that they remember how I was really pissed about Huang Er's character development. Yes, I was. Because after all that spunk and character and fire we see in that tournament arc, for those of you who haven't read it, that's basically where the female lead dresses up as a guy, beats the crap out of all the challengers in a marriage tournament because she knows the girl getting married off. And it's like, haha, who says two girls can't be together? And everyone's like, WTF? What the heck is going on there? That's pretty darn awesome. But then a few chapters later, or, when it comes to being part of the harem, she suddenly turns into no personality, no thoughts, and is totally like, Whatever you do is okay with me, Jiang Chen, brother Chen. I love you unconditionally, and you can take all the girls you want. And I'm like, I'm not opposed to a harem. I'm absolutely not. I've seen harems done right, and they're a lot of fun. But this is just like unrealistic, dude. She suddenly had all the personality of sliced bread. I was just like, way to just totally ruin a good memory. What kind of emotions am I feeling now that SOTR is finished? You dedicated a large amount of time into this project, and I'd like to hear your opinion. But mostly relief at the moment. A little bit of bittersweetness, honestly. It has been a large part of my life for a very long time. I will miss seeing that red flower in the updates bar. Honestly, mostly relief. And if I were to do it all over again, I honestly don't know if I would have picked SOTR, and you guys know why. Did I enjoy the Pokemon and Harem collection? Oh my gosh, yes I did. My interaction with you guys has probably been one of my favorite parts of SOTR. The whole Jiang Chen being a Pokemon trainer and his old men harem, these were kind of jokes that just grew out of the comments. I love it. And I love people speculating he's getting another Pokemon or he's getting another old man. You guys are a riot. It was so much fun. Definitely enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see what kind of inside jokes we developed for NECRO, alright? I am so excited. Best comment in SOTR. Way too many, guys. But really, me personally, I bet a lot of my fellow translators do, but me especially, I live for awesome comments, so please keep them coming. The last couple of chapters in SOTR, they're all breaking 100 comments. I love them. Thank you so much. It's really depressing when I only get like 10 or something, and they're like, thanks, or this is boring. Actually, probably bad comments is one of my least favorite parts about the job. Yeah, I know it's really boring sometimes. I know there's filler. But like, can y'all not just tell me that 50 times in a row? I still had to work on that chapter. Maybe just tell me like 10 times in a row. Don't tell me that 50 times. And don't tell me that 50 chapters in a row. Please, thank you. What is the best way to improve your editing skills? Any sources I should check out? This is really a really boring response, I'm sorry, man. But read good authors. Read people whose writing you think is good. And see what they do. What about their writing that makes it good? How do they write? How do they characterize their people? How do they describe thoughts and actions and emotion? Were there any times that encouragement from Discord and comments helped you continue? And on the other side, were there any times that negative reactions made you want to stop? Absolutely, guys. If it isn't clear by this point, we get a lot of motivation or demotivation from readers. And so if everyone's telling me 50 times in a row on 50 chapters on how ZZZ the chapter was, I get it. Great. And I'm not reading the comments for a while. But, I mean, definitely. So you guys know that there was this whole huge drama with Qidian for a very long time. And I was definitely very demoralized then because my chapters were getting taken. So it was extremely demoralizing. And it was my readers, honestly, that kept me going. I honestly thought about dropping SOTR a few times because that drama from Qidian was just a little too much. It was, I mean, you guys saw it splash across like chats and forums and threads and such. We got all that and behind the scenes nonsense too. But then every time I thought about quitting, I also thought about all the times that you guys encouraged me. The outpouring of support and welcome when I joined Wuxiaworld was incredible. That was a high I was on for several days. And every time, like, Count Gray, yes, Count Gray once sponsored me for a week of chapters, so I would take a break. My mouth dropped when I saw the donation, and I was like, thanks, dude, I am gonna translate more to thank you for your contribution. He was like, WTF, that was not the point of my donation. And, all the reviews, too. I know I tell you guys, if you go on a rant, at least end it on a positive note, maybe talk about the translation, but you guys aren't forced to, but a lot of you guys still do. And a lot of you guys know I read Reddit, I read novel updates, I read Twitter. There's always, recommend a translator to me or recommend a novel to me. And whenever I see SOTR me being mentioned, it brings a smile to my face. And you guys talk about how good I am, how good my works are, how good my writing is, or how much fun you guys have with League and my events and stuff. That's also really awesome. How do I feel now that SOTR is done and has messed up chapter numbering? Guys, the author messed up his numbering like 1,000 chapters ago and kept messing it up even further. My team has had to like mentally adjust every single time that we translate a chapter. I'd be like, so who's on 1871? And they'd be like, I got 1869, but that's actually 1870. I've got 1873, but that's actually 1875. Craziness like that. What was it like being in this niche community and seeing it prosper and get bigger? It's a wild ride. It's very rare that you get to participate in the absolute growth of something, from nothing to something. And that is a conversation for another time. But I feel blessed. It's very exciting. And I can't wait to see what the future holds in store. The small details are the pain of a translator, and sometimes finding synonyms where there are none. Etvo has good staff and friends, so half of it was not encountered thanks to them. Oh my gosh, I have a fantastic staff and friends. Yeah, I have bounced many an idea off of my colleagues, especially Deathblade and Shanks and Ren. Ren is a naming god, folks. He is great at naming. It's always nice to get a reality check from Deathblade and Shanks as well. And my team is pretty awesome. We often have huge brainstorming sessions, or it's more like yesterday, I threw a phrase into chat and I was like, oh, Formation Pearl, guys. I need a better, cooler sounding name than Formation Pearl. But a pearl is what it is. And it was Citrus, actually, who said orb. I'm like, okay, orb. We're going to go with orb. But I really hope you guys enjoy NECRO. There has been so much homework done for it beforehand because it's a whole new field. It's about tomb raiding, and so there's a lot of lore surrounding tomb raiding because it's an actual thing in Chinese culture. There were actually 4 ancient Chinese tomb raiding sects. So a lot of stuff had to be, like a lot of traditions, a lot of lore, a lot of ancient records, just stuff had to be researched and then translated. And then the author actually knows a bit about feng shui. So he employs a lot of feng shui concepts and theories, and holy crap, guys. I once spent an entire afternoon on 20 characters. It's madness. It was about Tai Chi philosophy. So not Tai Chi, the actual Kung Fu moves, but the philosophy behind them. 20 characters. I was like, oh my lord. What's my next translation? It is Necropolis Immortal, out in sneak peek. And you can read my other novel right now, ROS, Return of the Swallow. What are my top 3 translated novels? Are you sure you wanted to ask that? Number 1, Return of the Swallow. Number 2, Necropolis Immortal. Number 3, I don't know if I could put SOTR. I'll give you guys my top translators. That's just not fair. Top translators, guys, in no particular order, because that's like asking me to choose between my favorite parent. No can do. Favorite translators in the scene, ones I highly, highly, highly recommend. From Wuxiaworld, definitely recommend Deathblade. Y'all should read his original novel too, if you haven't read it. Definitely recommend Xiaolai. Great writing skills. If, hey, editors who want to improve their skills, read his writings. Definitely recommend Shanks. His translation of Rebirth has actually been the inspiration for me to improve my own writing. And you can really see the difference between NECRO and SOTR. A lot of it has to do with the raws, of course, but a lot of it has to do with the inspiration I got from him on Rebirth. From Volaire, I really highly recommend Rui. Her writing is pretty amazeballs, guys. I also take a lot of inspiration from her on how to improve my own. I also do highly recommend Chofler. Her writing is also most excellent. How do you decide how to translate proper nouns, such as names for special abilities or place names? You translate them, guys. First of all, first and foremost, you translate them. No pinging. This is my personal opinion, but I stand very strongly behind it. Leaving anything in pinging is lazy and a cop-out. Anything other than names, like character names, most of them are pinging. But honestly, a lot of character names can also be translated, like the forefathers in SOTR. Thousand Leaf. Wow, I forgot all of their other names. Translate them because the pinging means nothing to a non-Chinese speaker. And you want them to get the same sense of awe in English when they're reading as what we got in Chinese. And so my general rule of thumb is I translate unless I cannot. And I don't mean like a literal translation. So for instance, there's a pill in NECRO in the first couple of opening chapters that if I translate them, it would be 9 orifices, golden pill. So the 9 openings of the human body, golden pill. That sounds like crap when translated. You obviously do not want to translate that. In Chinese, it's 就恐惊单. So you obviously are not translating that literally. I did aurum openia pill. I took their Latin roots to translate because this is actually a pretty badass pill. So you want that sense of awe and might from it. So I'm definitely not calling it the 9 openings of the human body pill. Aurum is golden, and openia is actually the root for openings. So together, aurum openia sounds a lot better than 9 openings of the human body. So that's what I mean by translating stuff. I translate them generally as a rule of thumb, but I try to do it in conveying the same feeling and emotion. Were there any obvious plot elements that were forgotten or dropped? I mean, were there any that weren't? Kind of touched upon this earlier about, plot elements that would have preferred to see expanded, but yeah, quite a few, I would say. Are there any tropes that I find particularly amusing, and what about it that tickles my fantasy? All I'm going to say is, guys, the trope about the comic effect sidekick in NECRO, go long, it's done well. I generally don't find tropes amusing anymore just because I've read so much, so I find them amusing when they're done with a twist, or there's something a little bit different about them. They're done really well. When I rewrite the chapter, do I ever end up transposing elements of a paragraph or a whole chapter sometimes? Do I stay true to the flow of elements on the page even if I can't maintain every element and still get good English? When I translate/rewrite the chapter, I will transpose some elements of a paragraph and speech attribution, stuff like that, whatever helps comprehension. My main principle is to faithfully convey the author's message, mode, tone, atmosphere, etc. to the reader. And if I can do that by rearranging some stuff so it doesn't break immersion, or so that it's more coherent, more cohesive, then yes, I will do so. My editor does that better than me, though. I haven't quite developed the eye for that yet. Was I disappointed in the way that the author summed up Jiang Chen's brother story? Yes, I was. The beginning was good, the introduction was good. I was like, oh, who is this guy? And is Jiang Huang good or evil? And then it turned into, and they lived happily ever after. How would I describe all the other translators and editors and colleagues at Wuxiaworld in general, especially people like Rongmo Xing and Deathblade? All of them is a lot. I don't even know all of them sometimes because we have a lot of new people. But they're generally by and far very nice people. I like working with them. Ren's great. Ren's a personal friend of mine. We've known each other for like 5 years. He's a great guy. We chat. Deathblade's awesome as well. Deathblade and I keep talking about these collabs that we want to do. We never do them because we get too busy. We've talked about collabing on a novel, collabing on a podcast, collabing on some other stuff. One of these days, guys, we'll get it. What were my thoughts on the whole Qidian controversy and CK moving a web novel? Did it feel surreal that this gigantic company was against you and your colleagues? All the corporate espionage definitely felt surreal. All the drama and the backstabbing and the nonsense, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, guys, we're dealing with web novel translations. Guys, novel translations, It was insane. How long does it take for me to translate a chapter on average? It really depends on the chapter. Once I really get into the swing of things, anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour is definitely possible. But if I get that monster of a thing, then 20 characters is going to take me 4 hours. What are my thoughts on making my own novel? Guys, I definitely have thoughts. I have outlines. I have a lot of ideas. I am definitely going to write my own novel one day. SOTR be turning into an audiobook. It probably will not because the license is with Qidian, and we all know how that went. But I do believe, don't quote me on this, I think that NECRO can potentially be an audiobook. Maybe even a hardcover, I think. Do I read novels in Chinese or translated form? Both. Oh, you mean if the novels are Chinese? Then I prefer Chinese, just so I can really get to the source and really feel what it was that the author wanted folks to feel. How am I related to VolaireNovels.com? I founded VolaireNovels.com, and I actually ran it for 2 years. And then I decided I hated being a boss, and I stepped down and handed it over to Grace to focus on what really drives my passions. Who do I main in League? I am a support main. I guess that's very stereotypical, but I main probably all the caster supports. Nami, Lulu, Raka, Jana, Lux, Morgana, picking up Zyra. I mean, I can play her, it's just I'm not as good as her as the others. Like, I play a pretty damn mean Nami. I think I've gotten almost legendary once on Nami. Oh, by the way, I am on a podcast. Google MoonQuill Podcast. That's me. I actually have an episode just about wuxia. I was going to do one about xianxia, but then the coronavirus happened and the world kind of went to hell in a handbasket, so there's that. MoonQuill Podcast is on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. I see a couple questions about COVID-19. I am blessed to be residing in Taiwan at the moment, so my schedule hasn't really changed much. We aren't in a shutdown. Most things are opened. I guess most of us have just voluntarily cut back on our social stuff just to be safe. So I'm stuck in my apartment most of the time. Also because I really need to get more work done for NECRO, so it kind of comes at a really good time for me. Just kind of closed door cultivation, translating every single day, all day. So, but yeah, stuff hasn't changed much for me. So as a translator, she always gets antsy when she reads something translated by someone else because they just want to do it themselves. Agreed. It's just, I'm in like work mode all the time when I'm evaluating translations. I'm just like, okay, they did it this way. What do I think about it? How would I do it? How would I grade this? Stuff like that. Am I able to easily read both simplified and traditional Chinese? I am now. Simplified was a slight bit of a struggle at first, just because I didn't grow up with it. But after years of experience with it now, I actually don't know which one I read sometimes. I just read the Chinese. And I'm like, wait, was that simplified or traditional? I don't know. What I do struggle with is pinging and zhuing. So that's like the alphabet of simplified and traditional. I still get stuff wrong with both of them. How much does translating for 4.5 years feel like cultivating for 100,000? I don't know. I have not cultivated from 100,000. What are my hobbies? Do I do sports or something like that? Well, my hobbies are definitely league, but yeah, I work out. One of the things in our profession that's really important to do is to work out, stay healthy. So I definitely do a lot of that. And since I've been staying home a lot, I bought weights and elastic bands and a kettlebell to work out at home. I love going to comedy shows. I love going to performances. And yeah, just fun stuff. Love traveling, of course. Oh, I think I saw something about reverse translating bad translations. Yes, I reverse translate all the time. What are my favorite movies? I really like Disney movies. I really like to sing along to them. I know all the Disney songs. What kind of dramas do I watch? I watch a lot of different dramas. Right now, I am watching a Taiwanese drama called Someday or One Day. You guys need to watch this. Oh my goodness. It is so good. It is so good. I'm only on episode 10, and there's only 15 episodes, but it is so good, guys. I also really like sci-fi, so I've been watching Star Trek Picard. Not that much time, honestly. So yeah, I watch LCK, Someday or One Day, Star Trek Picard. Am I able to turn into an editor when I read other people's translations? Definitely. That's actually what I do for my team. So they do the first pass, and then I go in, I TLC, I check for accuracy, I edit, I rewrite for consistency, etc., etc. We have a good system going, but basically I do a lot of translating and rewriting and editing of their work. Is Chinese difficult to learn? Depends on what other languages you already know, but generally it is. Do I miss my job in finance? Not anymore. I definitely used to miss it some. It's just a different world entirely, and I got all of my education and my certifications, my licenses for it. But no, not anymore. Definitely not. My passion is my job, and it puts food on the table. Have I ever considered translating stuff from English into Chinese? I can't. My Chinese isn't that good. In my opinion, whatever you're translating into, your mastery of that language needs to be the higher mastery. So for instance, when I translate from Chinese to English, I am a native speaker in English, so that works. I am definitely not a native speaker of Chinese. I'm gonna butcher everything I try to do. Do I ever bump into SOTR reader in real life? Not in real life, but I have bumped into them on League. It's awesome. So my club handle is actually SOTR. I guess I need to change that now. And once I loaded with a teammate who was like, wait a second, are you the etvo or are you just a fan? I was like, I'm the etvo. Hi. He's like, holy crap. That was fun. But then I think what was more fun was that once I loaded into a game and someone typed in all chat because they were on the other side, they were like, hey, I read SOTR too. Cool. And then kind of got a conversation going on what chapters we were up to and what we liked about SOTR. And then finally I was like, dude, does this guy know? Does he not know? So I asked him, so who was the translator? And he said, well, the translator is your player name. I'm like, yeah, that's because I am the translator. And we were still waiting for the buffs to spawn, and both of our teams were all like, what? Because, both teams were reading the chat. That was really funny. How long do I think I will do this translating job? What's your future dreams and goals? Honestly, I'm gonna do this for as long as you guys will have me. Quite frank, it really is the intersection of my passion, job, and putting food on the table. I really like diving into stories, sharing them with you guys, and seeing all your reactions and feedback on it. And, putting out novels. So SOTRs actually entered the editing stage for ebooks, and there's going to be at least 30 volumes, I think. This is awesome. Like, I'm publishing books, guys. I will have books with my name on it. 30 of them in one go. It's crazy. So, yes, definitely staying in this field. My future dreams and goals for now is definitely I want to write my own. But that's already like 5 years in the future. So I still got 800 chapters of ROS to plow through. So we will cross the rest of that bridge when we get to it. Does Wuxiaworld have Wuxiaworld merchandise? No, it does not. I have my own merchandise though, my pins. So the next pin has been designed. It was actually based off of the astral white tiger. Sadly, we had a little thing called the coronavirus. Factories were first shut down, and now they are reopened again, but apparently almost 200 countries in the world are not accepting international mail anymore. You know that's crazy? I went to the post office last week to mail some reader packages out, and they were like, oh, I'm glad you don't have anything going to Australia or Canada because they are no longer accepting mail. Yeah, so we can get the pens made. I just don't know when I can get them to you guys. If someone who reads a novel notices grammatical errors and wants to help by becoming part of the final editing team, how would I suggest them to go about it? First of all, I would make a list of the errors in several chapters and also how you would correct them, assuming they're just not simple punctuation or grammatical errors. It's actually how I picked up Nabu. He was giving me a list of pretty good corrections, and so don't just ping the translator every single time you find an error. And then ping it to someone on their team if they already have an editor, or just throw it in their channel. Don't DM them incessantly. If you annoy them, that's not a way to get on their team. Do people give you ridiculous reactions when they hear what I do for a living? Absolutely. The reactions run the gamut. I'm not a good Asian because I went from finance to translating. Translating isn't very respected in Asia, to be honest. People seem to think it's like a garbage in, garbage out, we're quite MTL type folk. So yeah, a lot of people think it's really cool. They immediately start throwing all sorts of random wuxia techniques at me, wanting me to translate it, and I'm like, oh, I kind of need a dictionary just to make sure I'm getting everything right. There are nuances. The Chinese is such a complex and deep language. You've got to make sure you're considering all of those when you translate. Why is translating a ridiculous job, and what is my next big goal? I actually don't know what my next big goal is. I am so hardcore focused on my job. I'm a workaholic, guys. So once I digest some of the novels on my plate, I will think about my next big goal. And why is translating a ridiculous job? Because, well, like I said, it's not very highly regarded in Asia. And we're freelancers, so that's most people's idea of a translator, meaning you hop from project to project, gig to gig. So that means a lot of uncertainty, instability, whether in terms of workflow or money or just lifestyle too. So compare that to finance, high-powered finance, office job, stability, lots of money, prestigious, blah, 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 blah. That's a easy comparison right there. And yeah, the whole Asian parents thing. I'm a bad Asian. What can I say? Yes, finance is soul killing. That's why I burned out on it. All right. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in for 2 hours. Oh my goodness. It was a lot of fun. But oh my gosh, guys, this is the end of SOTR. This is the last event we're ever going to host. Last chapter reading. Thank you so much for being along for the ride. None of this would have been possible without you guys. Literally, none of this. And I really appreciate all of my readers. I seriously have some of the best readers around. Like when I asked you guys if anyone had masks to spare, y'all stepped up and I got packages. Thank you so much for loving SOTR. Oh, and if you're behind, if you haven't finished everything, it's going to be free for the next month. And then it's going to be locked behind the karma wall. So make sure you finish reading it. And read NECRO when it launches next week. But for now, read ROS. See you guys in NECRO and ROS.